My younger sister crashed into a Bugatti and the compensation reached up to 130 million RMB. The car's owner was the most untouchable young miss of capital city, Miss Bowie. I gritted my teeth and went to find her to ask to pay off this compensation in installments. Can I pay in installments for it? She leaned back against the sofa, staring at me for a full 10 seconds. Her plump red lips curved up slightly. From then on, I became her fake boyfriend so she could use me as a shield. She helped me pay off debts and solve troubles, and even helped me transfer to the music department that I had always yearned for. The only thing I needed to do was to pretend to like her. On the day, Bu Yanhee participated in the national violin competition. I sat under the grandstand. After winning the gold medal, she didn't celebrate with the coach first. Ran backstage to change into a pure white wedding dress, pushed through the crowd and threw herself straight into my arms, taking out a pair of rings, prepared beforehand. Onchen, Nengyet, will you marry me? The whole auditorium screamed, in shock. That pair of rings was worth up to 410 million but right-ons. That very night, her mother sent people to capture me, forcing me onto a flight bound for the UK. At the airport, through the glass pane, I agonizingly looked at her. She also used a gazo, full of deep affection, to look at me, saying her final words, "Wait for me to return." 5 years later, on the streets of London, a woman with an arrogant demeanor stood in front of a big screen. On the screen were clearly photos of me. Over the past 5 years, from an ordinary person, choked by debts, relying on my musical talent, had climbed to the center of the international stage. A skateboard girl skated by and asked, "Pardon me, Mrs. He, your idol." The person didn't budge at all. Her voice cold, yet firm. "My husband, somewhere else." My assistant Dungko excitedly screamed out, "On Chen! We've received another private performance invite." He was as excited as a child. 100 kilo, sir. I laughed helplessly. "It's just a private performance. Is there any need to be this excited?" Dungko looked mysterious, leaning close to me and lowering his voice. "This time is different. Guess how much the other party is paying, usually." A private performance was around 500,000 RMB. Seeing this look of his, I probed 800,000. He shook his head back and forth. No, guess higher, even higher than 800,000. What idiot would pay 1 million RMB? Unexpectedly, Dungko pouted. Higher, much, much higher. This matter is fundamentally unrealistic. Only then did I become alert. Could this be an easy job with high pay, and to lure me to the border to harvest my organs? We can't accept this man. Preserving our lives is more important. Dungko was poked into laughter by me. He patted his chest to guarantee. Where is your mind wandering? The performance location is right inside the country, right in capital city. Word is it's a young miss who just returned from the UK. I immediately got curious. Do you know who it is? No clue. It's pretty mysterious. We only know the young miss's surname is Bowie. This surname made my heart skip a beat, as if something deep inside my brain had just been touched upon. Write the tune she requested is Reminiscence. Reminiscence. It seems I've heard it before in my memories. It's so familiar. I tightly knitted my brows. Why can't I grasp that memory? It's as if it was sealed deep down in the recesses of my mind, right when I was struggling to remember. Out of Dungko's mouth suddenly blurted out a shocking number, 5.2 million RMB. The design intent is 520. Truly a blatant confession of "I love you." Being this romantic, could she have a crush on you, on Chen? Just what infatuated girl is secretly harboring a one-sided love for our president, Zhang Wuan? I snapped out of it, glared at him, and casually dropped a sentence. You're overthinking it. The location of the private performance was at Maklan Mansion, the most luxurious, wealthy enclave in capital city. The other party dispatched an entire Rolls-Royce Phantom Swarm to pick us up. Dung-ko was shocked, to the point of dropping his jaw. Holy crap, is this the class of a young miss? Walked up to me and poked me with his finger. That's too epic. That's too epic. So what if this world has one more person with money? So what? I chuckled. I'll give you a raise this month. As soon as these words left his mouth, he immediately began to flatter. President Hyung is so magnanimous. The Rolls-Royce Phantom ran extremely smoothly, driving straight into Maclan Mansion, stopping in front of a manor with an immensely vast area that seemed to have no end in sight, unimaginably luxurious. The decoration was extravagant. To the extreme, every tiny corner exuded the scent of money strongly. Looking at it deep inside my heart, I couldn't help but be in awe. Just who, in the world, is this young miss to be able to be wealthy to this extent? The butler and the servants stood waiting respectfully at the manor gates. Mr. Jung, please, sir. I gave a slight nod, a strange premonition rising in my heart as I stepped into the manor. The butler led me to the dressing room. A servant handed me a set of clothes. I raised my eyes to look. It was an outfit bearing the Hanfu style. Please change first, later someone will come to style you. Okay, thank you. Joe, I politely replied. I quickly changed into the performance outfit, and the size fit me unbelievably well, as if it had been custom tailored just for me. After finishing changing, a stylist began doing my hair, but 20 minutes later, everything was ready. The butlers led me to the performance stage. I looked down below. Down there sat a woman with a graceful figure, but the lighting was quite dim, so I couldn't clearly see her face. Yet the gaze of that woman was like a hook gripping tightly onto me before I could think further. The woman raised her hand to signal the start, so I had to cast aside all distracting thoughts, immersing myself, body and soul, into the performance. The performance ended, and I bowed to the audience down low. Just as I stepped off the stage, a servant blocked my path. Mr. Hyung, our young miss, invites you to have dinner. Hearing that, I instinctively turned my head back. The lighting was still dim. I still couldn't clearly see her face against the stage lighting. I stepped closer, step by step. That face finally became clear, striking my eyes. A petite, radiant face, smiling at me, a sexy yet casual long dress, carrying a lazy allure that hit me right in the face. She slowly looked at me, her plump red lips drawing a cunning curve. On Chen, long time no see. Her voice was utterly bewitching instantly, piercing through my eardrums. The very next second, I clutched my left chest. My heart felt as if it were being squeezed by someone hurting so much I could barely breathe. Seeing me like that, she panicked, stood up, and threw her arms around my chest. I let out a soft gasp, my whole body freezing, and standing, nailed to the spot, her arms wrapped around me. And Chen, her tone as gentle as water. Since you're back, don't ever leave me again. I lowered my head to look at the face pressed closely against me, another face that threw me into confusion. My mind was completely blank. I tried to push her away. She raised her head amusedly to look at me, but when she saw my empty ring finger, her pupils instantly constricted. I subconsciously knitted my brows, askance and blankly asking, do the two of us happen to know each other? In that moment, the smile on her lips froze. She stared fixedly at me, her voice trembling slightly with disbelief as she asked back, Chen, have you really forgotten me? I desperately tried to recall, but inside my head it felt as if something was sealed off. I shook my head. The feeling she brought me was very familiar, but I truly couldn't remember it. The atmosphere instantly froze, her whole body, as if plunging straight into an ice cellar. Panicked, I shifted my eyes away, not daring to look at her anymore, to escape This eerie ambiguity, I hurriedly pushed her away. Miss Bowie, do you have any other requests? If not, I'll go. Change clothes first. She hesitated for a moment, her tone turning cold. Go on. I turned around and walked away. The gaze from behind still heavily clung to me, and I could even feel she definitely wouldn't wait to get rid of me. As long as she settles, resentment emanating from her. My footsteps paused, leaving behind a single sentence of apology before I panicked and left. I walked into the dressing room to change back into my own clothes. My heartbeat still couldn't calm down. For a long time, Dong-ko was ecstatic, hovering around me. President Xiang, do you know the Buick? Young miss. My hand paused, looking at the hazy face in the mirror. After finishing changing, I replied, perhaps so. Dong-ko's eyes instantly lit up. Holy crap, she is so gorgeous. Truly a flawless goddess, that face. That figure. He leaned close to my ear, mysteriously lowering his voice. You can tell just by looking that she has a killer body. President Xiang, you absolutely must win her over. I'll beat you. Suppressing the strange feeling in my heart, I scolded him. Listen to yourself, what are you saying? How can you secretly gossip about others like that? I've met so many people, I absolutely guarantee. At President Zhang, why is your face so red, getting shy so easily? What are you going to do when you fall in love later? I was somewhat helpless, shaking my head. For now, I have no intention of falling in love. Someone brought tea over. Assistant Dung, President Xiang, you've both worked hard these past 2 days. Have a sip of tea. I pressed my lips into a smile, accepted the cup of tea, and took a sip. The very next moment, the servant spoke again. Later on, Miss Bowie will have a car, take the two of you to leave. I immediately refused. No need to trouble, Miss, but my family members will come to pick me up. The words had just left my mouth when President Zhang's family members have arrived to pick him up, so we won't need a ride anymore. Clear and indifferent female voice suddenly rang out in the room. I turned around to look, following the voice, unexpectedly seeing Bui Yanhee stepping inside. President Zhang's family members arrived just in time. Let me see you off. I snapped back to my senses, hurriedly lowering my head to look at my phone. At this moment, Mom had just conveniently sent a message. Over, and Chen Mom is outside Maclan's mansion. My family members have arrived. I looked at her and said politely. She immediately responded, then let me see you off. President Zhang originally intended to refuse, but seeing this appearance of hers, I had no choice but to nod. Then I'll trouble Miss Hui. Just as we stepped out of Maclan Mansion, modest Maybach caught my eye. My mother, Tongtua, was standing beside the car. Seeing me, she called out, Anne! Vincent. I hurriedly walked over. Mom even handed me a bouquet of fresh flowers. I accepted it, happily feeling grateful. Thank you, Mom. Hello, Aunt Tung, little Tung. My mother's gaze accidentally crossed paths with Bui Yanhee. Her gentle smile instantly rose. This must be Miss Bowie, right? Hello, Miss Bowie. Bui Yanhee's water-clear eyes suddenly turned red. She suppressed her emotions and gently nodded. Greet my mother, her voice sounding cold. I have some matters to attend to. Please excuse me first. Before her words had even finished, she turned around and resolutely walked away. The moment she turned her back, tears silently and without a sound fell down. Inside this bedroom at Maclan Mansion, Yanhee sat leaning against a single-person sofa, sitting there quietly and motionlessly all the way until the first ray of dawn pierced through the curtains and shone upon her completely turned white hair. Extreme grief and despair intertwined together. Yanhee had actually turned white-haired. In just a single night, the ringing of a phone suddenly shattered the stillness. Her eyelashes trembled slightly, and after a long while, She picked up the call. Keithan. Juan's crystal-clear voice rang out over the phone. Yenhi. ER. Her voice carried heavy disappointment. What's wrong? Didn't the two of you just experience a reunion after a long separation? Why does your voice sound so sad? Why? Why? The girl sighed softly. Sheng. Jin has amnesia, Keithan. Juan? Shocked. What, are you sure? On the third night, I stood in the middle of the stage of a charity gala playing bamboo flute melody. The final note had just faded when thunderous applause rang out below the grandstand. I retreated backstage, and before my eyes suddenly appeared an elegant and gentle figure, Tu Tain Van. She was holding a large bouquet of flowers in her hands. An Chen, congratulations on your successful performance. Thunderous applause. I retreated backstage, and before my eyes suddenly appeared an elegant, gentle figure, Kong Ting Van. She hugged a large bouquet of flowers in her arms. Jishin, congratulations. The bail for the organization. Thank you. I smiled, accepting the bouquet. But just at that moment, a cold and uncomfortable gaze stabbed straight into me. I raised my head to look over. Unexpectedly, it was Bui Yenhi. Her entire body exuded a wave of dangerous aura that made it hard for people to breathe. Spitting out 3 words, Mr. Zhang. Miss Bui. I hurriedly nodded to greet her. Her gaze swept across my body like a laser beam before stopping on Tu Tain Van's face. Who is this to you? I was a bit clueless about what was going on, but still spoke up to explain. This person is a friend of mine. Hearing that, she let out a soft, sneering chuckle, her lips curling into a mocking smile that was somewhat sarcastic. Right after, her gaze stopped on Tu Tain Van and the freshly gifted bouquet, and she spoke with utter annoyance. Or is she your girlfriend? Reacting reflexively, I explained. Just friends. Wei Yanhai let out a detached, cold laugh and shifted her eyes to look at Tu Tain Van. Oh, so just friends. These flowers are truly beautiful. Can you let me take a look? I nodded. Once, I handed the bouquet over, but at the exact moment I let go of my hands. Who would have thought she would also let go of her hands? That arrogant and gorgeous bouquet of flowers plummeted heavily to the ground, producing a dull thud. I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to do it. The woman's mouth said, sorry, but her foot pretended to accidentally step on the petals. I was completely stunned. My heart flooded with 10,000 question marks. After stepping on them, she bent down to pick up the bouquet and threw it straight into the nearby trash can. Motion as smooth and fluid as flowing water and drifting clouds without a single trace of hesitation. She turned back to look at me, her face still wearing an expression of sincere apology. I'm really sorry, Mr. Zheng, but I truly didn't mean to. Saying that, she added another sentence. Later on, I'll buy you another bouquet as compensation. I was completely speechless. Does this count as not meaning to, except for that mouth? Her entire body, from top to bottom, screamed the 2 words, on purpose. In my entire life of looking for trouble, I had never spoken words so brazenly arrogant. Mr. Zhang, why aren't you saying anything? Her innocent gaze asked. Are you blaming me? I was so angered by her that I laughed, only able to stiffly reply with, no, I'm not. I turned my head, intending to say an apology to Tu Tain Van. However, right as I was about to open my mouth, it's just a bouquet of flowers. Wei Yanhi coldly spoke up, cutting off my words. I believe Miss Tu isn't the narrow-minded type of person, right? She looked at Tu Tain Van with a smile that wasn't a smile, her gaze full of provocation. Tu Tain Van's expression froze, yet she forced out a smile. It's just a bouquet of flowers. It's not important. Next time, I'll gift Anchen a better-looking one. Wei Yanhai let out another sarcastic tone. Oh, unimportant things get gifted to idols, while important things just languish in gorgeous splendor. Tu Tain Van's expression instantly flushed red like a pig's liver. She was just about to speak up in explanation when Doomko rushed over anxiously. President Yang, hurry up and go change your clothes. Banquet is about to start. I was pulled away by Doomko. but instinctively glanced back at Bui Yanhee. She was also getting ready to follow us and leave that place, but before leaving, she actually shot Tu Tinch and a deeply provocative look to Din Van's gaze. Instantly turned gloomy, her plump red lips tightly pressed together. The charity banquet ended. I sat inside the car, the tips of my fingers still lingering with the sensation of touching the bamboo flute, but in my head was entirely the image of that trampled bouquet of flowers. I irritably loosened my tie. Doong-ko, in the front passenger seat, kept glancing sideways at me along the way. I massaged the bridge of my nose. "If you have something to say, spit it out." He grinned wide, leaning closer. "President Zhang, today I feel like my eyes were really opened. The acting skills of Bui Young Miss are truly top-notch." She stepped on flowers like she was walking a catwalk. There were so many people backstage, yet not a single person dared to peep a single half-word. I shot him a sidelong glance. "You seem to really admire her." "Admire her? I wouldn't dare. It's just that President Zhang, I keep having this." I squeezed out 2 words from my throat, my voice sounding as dry as rubbing sandpaper together. "I'm begging you," feeling that Bui Young Miss looks at you very unusually. Ever since meeting Bui Yanhee, there had always been a very familiar feeling. I was very certain that inside my brain there truly was no memory of this woman, but why did I feel like she understood me so well? By the time Doong-ko and I got back to the apartment, it was already late at night. I took off my jacket, casually tossing it onto the sofa, just getting ready to go take a shower when Doong-ko's phone suddenly buzzed continuously. He answered the call, his complexion turning pale at a speed visible to the naked eye. Hanging up the phone, his entire body looked as though his strength had been drained. "President Zhang, we're screwed." My heart skipped a beat. Starting from the latter half of this year, all of our commercial performance invites, every single one of them has been cancelled. I was stunned. All year-end performances at the Huiting Grand Theater, the flute duet with the Shanghai Symphony Orchestra, the Shenzhen International Music Festival, and even the Countdown Festival in Macau. Doong-ko rattled off a whole string of them, running out of breath. Screwed. My breath stalled. These invites were the fruit of 5 solid years of effort that I had painstakingly accumulated, starting from small pubs in Europe, playing the flute all the way to the John F. Kennedy Center, from the time people called me that Chinese kid, until international music critics took the initiative to write feature articles introducing me. Every single performance was my life. What is the reason? I tried to keep my voice as calm as possible. The other party said the schedule has some issues. Doong-ko whimpered. "They will compensate us double the breach of contract fee." I let out a cold laugh. Canceling the entire schedule on the very same day at the very same time. This matter clearly had someone meddling behind the scenes. Doong-ko cautiously and timidly looked at me. "President Zhang, could it be Tu Tinch? Then she doesn't have that kind of ability. No matter how capable Tu Tingvan was, she didn't have the methods to overturn so many top-tier performances in just a single night to be able to do this." A buzzing sound rang out in my head. That petite, exquisite face appeared once again at 8 a.m. The next morning, the apartment doorbell rang. Doong-ko, with a guarded expression, ran out to open the door, then turned back. "President Zhang, outside, there's someone here." "Who?" "She calls herself Keithan Huan. She says she's the best friend of Bui Young Miss." Keithan Huan. Why was this feeling of both familiarity and strangeness back again? Annoying to death, I tidied up my clothes and stepped outside. Sitting on the living room sofa was a woman wearing a beige trench coat. "Seeing me come out?" She stood up and politely extended her hand. "Mr. Chang, hello." I shook her hand politely yet distantly. "Miss Key, you've waited long. Do you have business with me?" She got straight to the point. "I came purely to ask you a question on Yanhee's behalf. Do you really not remember anything at all?" I remained silent. Kithanhuan stared straight into my eyes. Jungchen 5 years ago. You personally said something to me. You still remember? I shook my head. He smiled faintly, a smile carrying an unspeakable exhaustion. But then, you told me Sister Thanhuan if Yenhi is taken away by her mother. Please help me block it for a bit. For my whole life, I'll only marry her. This sentence was like a ruthless key poking deep into my brain, yet the lock didn't budge at all. I pressed hard against my temples, cold sweat seeping out. I'm sorry, I truly don't remember. Thanhuan pulled a set of documents from out of her briefcase. Mr. Zhang, this is the exclusive acquisition contract for all of your commercial performances. From the partners' side, signed on behalf of Bui Cultural and Creative Industries, starting from today until the next 3 years. Your schedule will be entirely monopolized by our Bui group. Next 3 years. In other words, all of the top-tier commercial performances within the country had all been monopolized by Buick. Genhai in a single sweep. I almost gritted my teeth as I asked, what does she want to do? What does she want? Do you ask Mr. Shang this question? Let's go home, she said. Go home. I looked at her and suddenly burst out laughing. Laughing until tears welled up. Home. What home could I possibly have? My home was destroyed 5 years ago, and my hope was crushed with her own hands just days ago. Uruyan. I looked at her, emphasizing every single word as I asked, did you come to watch? I joke. Congratulations on your success. Everything of mine has been ruined by you. Are you satisfied? She took off her sunglasses. You should go ask her yourself, Miss Key. Being a working professional also has its limits. She let out a faint chuckle, a cold scoff. Mr. Jungyo talked to Yenhi about limits. Why? Miss Bui and I only have a normal cooperative relationship. Jungchen, you can forget her, but you cannot not know what happened 5 years ago, how she was forced onto that flight. Good intentions for what? Thanhuan didn't answer my question, only fumbling to take out from her bag a photograph that had yellowed with age, placing it on the coffee table. Take a look. I stepped over and picked that photograph up. The photo seemed to be from a very long time ago. The corners were curled up. On it were 2 people. One was Bui Yenhi wearing a wedding dress and the other was me, wearing a suit. In the eyes of both people was an overflowing tenderness that could not dissipate. Hands holding the photograph of mine trembled violently, and my temples were throbbing continuously, the feeling as if something was about to break out. A girl standing on a stage, holding a violin in her hands, then smiling as she ran toward me, throwing herself into my arms, her eyes turning red as she said, "Will you marry me?" Right after the image shattered, I staggered a step back, steadying myself against the coffee table so I wouldn't collapse. Mr. Jung, Kithanhuan panicked, reaching out her hand to support me. I'm fine. You remembered something, right? I shook my head. Just a few very faint image fragments. Kithanhuan's gaze, looking at me immediately, changed, shifting from initial hostility to complexity. In this moment, she hesitated for a few seconds before finally speaking. Zhang Chen, 5 years ago, you and Yenhi breaking up had nothing to do with whether her mother agreed or not. My heartbeat skipped a beat. Athena, your father's Jiangxi Medical, because of reasons originating from the Bui family, was on the verge of bankruptcy. My pupils constricted. Genhai, in order to save your father's company, made a deal with her mother. She agreed with Madame Bui to go abroad to study, in exchange for Jiangxi Medical being revived. The blood in my body instantly turned freezing cold. Kithanhuan let out a cold laugh. Mr. Zhang, I'm a benefactor, assisted you in your career. Every single time you were lucky enough to be exceptionally promoted and stand out. Standing behind it all was a Yenhi helping you. The living room sank into silence, leaving only my heavy, rapid heartbeat. My fingers clenched tightly into fists. Over the past 5 years, I had thought those inexplicable performance invites were because the heavens had eyes, turns out. There was someone in a place I couldn't see, paving out an entire road strewn with roses for me ahead of time. At the 5-year mark, when she returned, looked at her face and asked, "Did we know each other before?" Juan let out a long sigh. "I shouldn't have told you in the first place." My voice was hoarse, my bloodshot eyes staring at her. "Then why did you tell me?" She pointed out the window. "Because she stayed awake the entire night, and her hair turned more than half white." I abruptly raised my head. "Zhang." Again in my entire life I have never seen anyone turn white-haired over a single night for someone else, but Yenhi did it, outside the window. The sky had grown completely bright, yet I felt then as though I were sinking into an endless abyss of darkness. After Keith and Juan left, Dungko carried coffee in, seeing me sitting motionless on the sofa. He carefully placed the coffee cup down on the table. "President Zhang." I didn't raise my head. "President Zhang, are you okay?" I slowly looked at that photograph, the tips of my fingers gently stroking the face of the girl in the photo. After a long while, I finally spoke in a low voice. "Dungko, help me investigate something." "President Zhang, just name it." I flipped over the back of the photo. On the back was a line of elegant handwriting. "And Chen, our first weddings ceremony, I'm marrying you." The date was the 8th of June, 5 years ago. I clenched the photograph so hard that my knuckles turned pale white. "Help me investigate whether on June 8th, 5 years ago, at St. Joseph's Church near the western suburbs of Capital City." On the back was a string of exquisite handwriting. "Jishen, our first wedding. I am marrying you." The date was June 8th, based on memory. These posts were quickly taken down. The Liu family's crisis response capability was beyond imagination, but I didn't care about deleting. Did there have a wedding that wasn't fully held or not? Dungtu looked at me with a bewildered expression. "President Zhang 5 years ago." I raised my head, my eyes a mass of fiery red. "Go to work." After Dungtu left, I sat on the sofa all night long, turning that photograph over and over again. Not under hundreds of times. The girl in the photo smiled brightly, without any guardedness, while the person who was me in that picture had eyes as clear as if just stepping out of spring. I didn't know how I had lost her, nor did I know how I had made her. At 6 a.m., Dungtu rushed into the apartment. He didn't knock directly, using the spare key to charge in. His hair was as messy as a bird's nest, and the bags under his eyes were pitch black. "President Zhang." He slammed a stack of documents in his hands down onto the coffee table. I bolted upright. "Spit it out, just spit it out." "President Zhang, prepare yourself." I snatched up the top sheet of paper. It was a copy of the registration records of war. St. Joseph's Church, near the western suburbs of Capital City. On June 8, 5 years ago, 3:00 p.m. Bride and groom, Kongchen Bui Yenhi. In the witness section, 2 names were signed. One was Keith An Huan, and the other was my father, Kong Chuan. My fingers began to tremble violently. "President Hang, there's another copy." Dungtu pulled out yet another sheet of paper. "This is the payment statement from that day. Every single transaction was signed by your father's own hand." I slumped blankly back down onto the sofa. Turns out that wedding not only truly existed, it was even handled single-handedly by my own father. Turns out over the past 5 years, the whole family had been joining hands to deceive me alone. "President Zhang Sherdung." Thu's voice dropped very low. I raised my eyes to look at him. "There's one more thing." He swallowed hard. "In the middle of the night, I found the old security guard of St. Joseph's Church. Go drink." He said that day the wedding was only being held halfway when something happened. What happened? When the bride exchanged rings, the 2 of them fell down from the stairs. The bride fainted right on the spot. And what about me? You also fainted. But luckily, the exact moment the accident happened, the bride hugged you tightly, shielding you, so you only suffered slight scrapes. Jung-Thu paused. Afterwards, some other things happened. I closed both my eyes tightly. A scalding tear rolled down from the corner of my eyelashes. I no longer had the courage to keep listening. Inside my head, another sentence of that woman echoed, "Jung-Chen, have you really already forgotten me?" I stood beneath the Bowie Group building, tightly gripping a cup of Americano that was still steaming. This was information I had gotten Jung-Thu to investigate Buyenhe every afternoon at. We'll be going downstairs now, the cafe opposite, to buy a cup of Americano with no added sugar and no added milk sticking to it to the point of making people furrow their brows. Kithan Huan once said this habit she formed while in the UK, and for 5 years she still hadn't changed it. A habit of 5 long years, yet I didn't even remember what she liked to drink. Right at 3:00, the revolving door was pushed open. She stepped out, holding a phone in her hand, engrossed in looking at something. She swept past right in front of my eyes, her gaze basically not even bothering to glance in my direction a single bit until I spoke up to call out Yenhe. She stopped in her tracks, turned her head, and dropped. Just 2 neat, decisive words, cutting off the air. "What is it?" The words I had prepared in advance suddenly choked in my throat. "I want to talk to you." She glanced at her watch. "What is there to talk about? I have 15 minutes. I slightly slumped casually, handing the cup of coffee over. "I heard you like drinking Americano. I just happened to pass by and bought one." She glanced over it without taking it. "Jung-Chen, you don't need to be like this. I don't have anything else. I just want to apologize." She cut me off, her tone as calm as reading a report. "You have already apologized," Kithan Huan already told me. "The apology you said. I have also received it. Is that enough?" I gripped the coffee cup tightly rooted to the spot, suddenly realizing how ridiculous I was. Right, I had already apologized, but after that. So what? I laboriously spoke up. At that time, I truly didn't remember anything about you, about wedding, about everything. I didn't mean to. I know Kithan Huan has already told me everything. Amnesia, selective forgetting, psychological trauma medicine has a logical explanation for it, which makes complete sense. So what? Do you expect me, because of a single "I don't remember" from you, to treat the past 5 years as if nothing ever happened? I didn't mean it like that. Then, what do you mean? I looked straight into her eyes, yet couldn't utter a single word, only able to forcefully suppress it as I looked at Gao. The woman took a deep breath. "Chen, I don't hate you. Hating someone is too exhausting. I don't have that kind of energy anymore. I just don't know how to face you. So you don't need to go out of your way to look for me either. Between us, no one owes anyone anything." Finished speaking, she turned around, intending to leave. She walked 2 steps, then paused, turning her back toward me to say, "And another thing, I don't drink Americano." I watched Buyenhe's retreating figure grow further away, tossing that cup of coffee into the trash can. That night I suffered from insomnia, lying in bed with my head completely filled with doubt. Her cold gaze. She said she didn't hate me, but she also hadn't forgiven me at all. I had turned into someone not worth bothering to care about. In her eyes, I got up, grabbed my phone, and found the contact info for Jung-Thu. "Help me check her upcoming schedule." 5 minutes later, Jung-Thu replied with a question mark. "President Xiang, didn't you say not to disturb her anymore?" I sheepishly cleared my throat. I changed my mind. "Do you have a problem with that?" No. Or my boss. Whatever you say goes." Early the next morning, Jung-Thu sent a report to my phone. It was Buyenhe's schedule for this week. I glanced over the report, my fingers pausing on the screen. Thursday orphanage. Today was precisely Thursday. Without allowing myself any time to hesitate, I directly drove to the orphanage. After arriving, I sat in the car, standing from afar to watch her play around with the kids. She squatted down on the ground with a little girl wearing braided horns stacking building blocks. The look when she smiled matched up with a certain faint outline left over in my memories. Remembered that smile. I really remembered it. My heart suddenly skipped an extra beat. Didn't get out of the car, just sitting inside, from afar, watching her tease and play with the kids, sharing a small piece of birthday cake. She smiled very brightly, completely different from the person downstairs at the buoy group yesterday. Turns out, in front of others, she still knew how to smile. All the way until her car left the orphanage. Did I start the engine and tail closely behind? Bui Yenhee didn't go home, instead heading to a place in the western suburbs of capital city. I drove trailing behind her, stopping at an old neighborhood. She walked into a musical instrument shop. I waited inside the car for around 40 minutes. When she walked out, in her hands she carried a long rectangular box, a violin case. She carefully placed the instrument case onto the front passenger seat. Just as she bent over to store the instrument, her gaze suddenly swept past my car, parked across the street. Our eyes intersected across the distance of a street for a second, then stood up straight, looking at me, as if trying to confirm what on earth I was planning to do. I got out of the car and walked over. What happened to your violin? She glanced sideways at me. The instrument body has a few minor cracks, and the fingerboard was a bit unglued. Uncle Zhao helped me glue it back together a bit, and by the way, replaced it with a brand new set of strings. Her tone of voice while speaking was very calm, just like chatting with an ordinary friend, yet the fingers tightly gripping her instrument case clenched slightly tighter. I caught that tiny detail. Can you let me take a look? She hesitated for a second, then handed the instrument case over. I flipped the inside face of the instrument case up, immediately spotting a carved line of text. A fingerstop suddenly stiffened. IYA, which were the initials of Yenhee's name. I raised my head to look at her. The first listener you gifted it to, I'm crying. I lowered my head to look at the text I carved. Why didn't I remember it anymore? She reached out to support the instrument. Ace placed it back onto the passenger seat, closed the car door, turned around to look at me and asked, blurring the ink lines. I closed the diary, my heart tangled in 100 ways. I had always thought of her as a cold-blooded, heartless devil, not realizing that beneath her cold mask. Why are you following me? I pressed my lips together. I don't know. I just wanted to look at you for a bit. She did not speak. The wind blew past, messing up a few of her hair strands. She brought her hand up to tuck her hair behind her ear. Now you've seen her, so what? I paused for a moment. Are you still coming to the orphanage tomorrow? She looked at me, her gaze flashing with the trace of hard-to-understand emotion. I'm going. Then tomorrow I'll come. Again. She didn't answer, but also didn't refuse, simply pulling open the car door and sitting inside. The car window rolled down halfway, her voice carrying out from inside. Junction, you don't need to make amends. Like this for me, I don't need your pity. I don't pity you. I just want to. She didn't add any more words. The car slowly rolled away from the street corner. I stood rooted to the spot, watching her until her taillights disappeared behind the turn. The phone in my pocket suddenly buzzed once it was a text message sent by her 10 a.m. tomorrow. I stared blankly at those 4 words standing by the roadside, and involuntarily laughing out loud, I put my phone back into my pocket, just intending to head home. When my phone suddenly buzzed again, it was a call from Dongthu, President Zhang. There's this matter I think I must report to you. Tutin Van just met someone this afternoon, Dongthu reported with disappointment. At a private club in the eastern 3rd Ring Road. I immediately ran a check on the person she met. He carries the Bui surname, Ahmed Buikanhan. Buikanhan. Had never heard this name before in my life. Who is that? Dongthu paused for a moment, answering. That's the eldest son of the main branch of the Bui family. According to seniority, he counts as Bui Yenhe's cousin. Bui Yenhe's cousin. Why would he look for Tu Tin Van? It's unclear, but I conveniently dug up some old stories. 5 years ago, at the time when Bui Yenhe's mother took power, she kicked Buikanhan's father out of the board of directors. From then on, the two families no longer interacted much. To put it bluntly, there was pre-existing bad blood. I gripped my phone tightly, my brain spinning at dizzying speed. Tu Tink. Van and Bui Yenhe's cousin, these two people getting together. Who is the target? It goes without saying. Can you check what he's been up to lately? I asked. I'm already investigating, but this guy is pretty tight-lipped. There's no movement out in the open. Keep an eye on him, and if there's any news at all, you must report it to me immediately. At 9:30 a.m. the next morning, I had already arrived before the orphanage gates, carrying a hot cup of latte with sugar and milk, and also conveniently bringing an extra portion of sandwich. Arrived half an hour earlier than the appointed time, just sitting on the bench outside the door, waiting. At 9:50 a.m., a white Audi pulled up before the gates. Today, she was wearing a pink coat, her hair tied in a high ponytail, wearing a pair of silver earrings. She stepped out of the car, seeing the coffee and paper bag in my hands. Today I also brought a sandwich. Are you hungry? She reached out to take the coffee and sandwich, lowering her head to glance at it once. Although she didn't say a word, the corners of her mouth curved up slightly. She didn't eat right away, just carrying it in her hand as she turned and walked inside the courtyard. I followed closely behind. The activities at the orphanage were no different from yesterday's. Reading picture books with the kids, stacking building blocks, eating snacks. Throughout the entire process, she was very focused, joyfully, playing on the ground, blending as one with the little ones. There were still plenty of snacks left over, helped out nearby by distributing fruit. My gaze, always firmly glued to her. Snack time ended, and the kids were led away for their nap. She sat on the swing in the courtyard, finally opening that sandwich portion up to take a bite. I sat down on the swing beside her. Yesterday, you told me to be careful of Tu Tin Van. Did you not believe me? Joanne continued asking. Then what about your cousin? Her movement of chewing the sandwich suddenly paused, lasting around a few seconds, screaming, you don't believe it. Yeah, continued asking. Then what about your eyes burning red? Her brother rushed forward, wanting to drag her away. Sister, you've gone mad. How can you, the proud eldest miss of the Liu family, how can you be here doing chores? She finally swallowed it down. She didn't look at me, her voice calm to an unusual degree. Did you investigate him? It wasn't me who investigated. Someone saw him go meet Tu Tin Van. She was silent for a long while. The wind swept past the frame of the swing, making it gently sway, after which she spoke. Buikanhan is my eldest uncle's son. Her voice was very soft. 5 years ago, after my mother invited his father out of the board of directors, he always felt that our family owed him. I concernedly asked, will he cause trouble? She didn't answer, merely turning her head back to meet my gaze. He doesn't dare openly step out to oppose me, but if joins hands with others, then that's hard to say. My heart sank. Burns. Out. She knew all about it. You knew about him going to meet Tu Tin Van. I didn't know they met, but I could guess that they would meet. Tu Tin Van detests me and Buikanhan also hates me. Two people harboring resentment against me gathering together couldn't possibly be to discuss planning a birthday party. For me, could it? I was provoked by her tone, the point of wanting to laugh, yet couldn't laugh at all. What are you planning to do? I'm not planning anything at all. She took the sandwich. She had just taken a bite of her smile fading. If they want to make a move against me, they'd better have the guts to do it. When she uttered this sentence, her tone was very faint and indifferent, as if she didn't take those two people into her eyes at all. Yet I noticed how the fingers holding her paper bag, clenched slightly. I opened my mouth just, intending to speak when the phone in my pocket suddenly buzzed frantically. Took it out to check it was a text message sent by Dung Thu. President Zheng, it's been figured out. Hui Kan Han registered a new company 3 days ago. The legal representative is someone you don't know, but after stripping down the shares, the ultimate beneficiary is still him. This new company yesterday just submitted an acquisition letter of intent to Bui Cultural and Creative Industries. He wants to buy a business segment under Bui Cultural and Creative Industries, and this business segment happens to precisely be the subsidiary companies in charge of connecting all of your performance shows. I stared fixedly at the screen, my pupils slightly constricting. I raised my head to look in her direction. She was also lowering her head to look at Mat's her own phone, her eyebrows slightly knit together. Obviously, she too had received the related news. After reading the text message, she put her phone down, raised her head to look at me, and broke into a faint smile. Zhang Chen, this afternoon. Are you busy with anything? I'm not. I shook my head. Then come with me. To a place, shall we? Where to? She stood up, dusting off the non-existent dust on her clothes, the corners of her lips curling into an arc. Naturally, to go meet my good cousin. Before I could even reply, she had turned around and walked toward the car, parked at the gates. Yen He. I abruptly looked back at her. What are you standing there? Stunned for let's go. I hurried round to the passenger seat and sat inside the car, which immediately sped straight out. The wind blew past, threading through the soft hair strands. By her ear, my gaze fleetingly swept over. Her expression was very calm. Even calm, to an outrageous degree. How do you plan to talk to him? Talk about what? Tell him that I already know all about his little tricks played behind my back. He let out a faint chuckle. I won't say anything. I was a bit confused. What do you mean by staying silent? He registered a new company and drew up an acquisition letter of intent. All of those are completely legal and compliant. Commercial actions. If I rush over to question him, he will instead play the victim and shout thief while catching thieves, saying that I, his cousin, am narrow-minded and unable to tolerate family doing business. She paused for a beat. Therefore, I won't go discuss acquisition matters with him. Then why are we going to see him? She cast a sideways glance at me, a smile drawing across the corners of her mouth. To go give him a gift. Why else? Give a gift. To congratulate him on his company's grand opening. I was stunned. Neil. She paused for a beat and said, so I won't be discussing the acquisition with him. Then why are we going to see him? She glanced over at me, the corners of her mouth curving into a smile. To give him a gift, of course. Just one brief reply was enough to make. After a moment, I figured out her goal. I leaned back against the seat and laughed along. As well, you're really vicious too.